thanks for joining us, everyone. I guess it sounds like you guys have a lot of things you really want to talk about, but this year is kind of important for Sega because it marks the 25th anniversary of the release of the Genesis. Can you guys talk about that and what that means for Sega now as a company?
Okay. Thanks. So the Sega Genesis, that was one of the great moments in our company's history, and we were able to spawn so many franchises that people today still love from that era. And so as we celebrate 25 years of great new IPs, we remember the value of that as we are building today's games and are looking to bring a lot of your favorite brands back.
Can you guys talk a little bit about let's set the stage here. Some of the first games you've worked on since joining Sega, so people can attach you to some of their favorite titles. Yeah, go ahead.
So my first title at Sega was Sonic Heroes on the GameCube and PlayStation 2 and Xbox.
My history goes a little farther back. My first title that I worked on was a game called Choo Choo Rocket for Dreamcast.
Panzer Dragoon and Jet Set Radio and the Atlus CD.
Can you guys talk about, your background in gaming and what attracted you to Sega? What made it an interesting company for you to get into? I know, Ethan, you have a really interesting story that maybe people in this audience would want to pay attention to.
All right, so back when the Dreamcast came out, I was 16 years old. I was working at my first job at Dairy Queen. And the first 3 paychecks I got all went towards buying a Genesis with Ultra Beast in the back.
Yeah.
So that was what got me turned into a Sega fanboy. From there I just couldn't miss a platform. Most significantly, I think, was walking into an import store before the Dreamcast had come out in the United States and seeing a Japanese version of the machine running Sonic Adventure and seeing that giant whale chasing Sonic.
Yeah.
Yep. On the spot, I spent $600 to buy that with Virtua Fighter 3 TV and 1 controller.
My introduction to Sega was, obviously I played games growing up, and I came to work for the company kind of through a back door. I have a history in web development, and I kind of came on to the online team at the launch of Dreamcast to help support the SegaNet, which was the ISP we launched for the Dreamcast.
When we first started, when we finished college, he joined Sega, and the first game we worked on was Panzer Dragoon's Wife.
で僕が初めにやったのが、パンツァードラグーンの中でボスキャラクターを何体か作るゲームデザインをやってました。
So basically, we worked as a kind of a boss creator, kind of a character designer for characters and bosses that you see in Panzer Dragoon.
It's a nice way to set the stage. So yeah, you guys did the raffle thing too. There's some really interesting prizes for the end of this panel. So stay awake, pay attention. But yeah, let's see here. I guess I really want to talk about Sonic because growing up, he was such an interesting.
Who?
Sonic, this the blue bomber.
Right.
There we go. There's a Sonic guy. He was a really interesting character to me because at that point games were really kind of friendly, kind of like a little cutesy, and Sonic had some edge. Can you guys talk about what was the value of the character during the Genesis days, and what does Sonic mean to people now and Sega?
So I remember specifically the first time I saw Sonic the Hedgehog running, and all I could think is, damn, he's fast. I mean, seriously, because I was playing Super Mario Bros. 3,
Okay.
What I had at home was an NES, but my buddies had a Genesis. They'd just gotten one, and they'd gotten it for Sonic, and it felt like the first true next gen game, and that's what he represented at the start. What's great about the character is he appeals to both old and young,
My first memory is, I think, just looking up at the screen and then seeing him look back at me and kind of cross his arms and tap his feet. Like, what are you going to do? Which I thought was, the attitude I thought was the thing that really attracted me. I think he's just had a little more of an edge, which perhaps has softened over the years as the gaming industry has matured, but I think that's a good thing. I mean, it gives you a little bit of nostalgia. You can fire up a game and kind of relive a bit of your youth, I guess.
僕はソニックは会社に入った時からずっとソニック会社のマークがソニック。
So he's basically been kind of an icon and I guess kind of a symbol of Sega since Kikuchi-san is kind of part of Sega.
そのソニックに代わるキャラクターを何とか作れないかっていうのをずっと目指して若い頃。
So we'd like to look into other main characters that we can make as well too for as kind of a main character for Sega.
And we've seen the Sonic character mature over the years. He's like, you brought up the Sonic Adventure demo, like that was, I remember seeing that for the first time, and he's running towards you. That was such a big deal at the time. What was it like working on Sonic, and this is for Kikuchi-san too, working on Sonic for Dreamcast, on the Dreamcast days versus the Genesis days, and maybe compare it to now, like Sonic is more of a mobile character now, it seems. He belongs mobile, yeah.
Well, the thing that's great about working with Sonic is that the key components of that character are translatable to really any platform. So he's blue and he's fast, obviously he worked great on 16-bit hardware. Seeing him in 3D for the first time was great, and he works out really well there. And by the way, the new Lost World game coming out on Wii U is awesome. If you guys have tried Sonic Dash, he just fits perfectly there as well in a pre-runner game.
Sonic today.
Sonic today.
And also, I guess watching Sonic change over time, what was it like Sonic on the Dreamcast, like working on that versus Sonic during the Genesis days? No, yeah, related a little to what Sonic is doing today.
Sure. And in terms of Sonic on Dreamcast, my work involved on the website side of things, so we actually built a website that the Dreamcast interfaced with, just a lot of the child management and some of the high school tracking, things like that. So kind of boring, but it was interesting for me. I guess kind of what I was saying before, Sonic is he's changed stylistically, and we have evolved the way he's looked a little bit, but I think he still kind of has the core values, to use some boring term, and then he hasn't really aged that much. And I think for me it was really interesting to see Sonic Generations, kind of so you can actually see them. I think if you just think of Sonic, he looks kind of the same in your brain, but then when you put an older version of Sonic up against the newer one, you kind of see the difference between the two and how he has evolved over time. And to Ethan's point, I think he's a blue guy that runs fast, so I think that it lends itself to a lot of different applications, a lot of different types of games, which we certainly have been doing and have done in the past, and will continue to do in the future.
And Kikuchi-san, Sonic in the Dreamcast days, like how is it different from the Genesis days?
ドリームキャストの頃は一番スマートでクールで、今はもっと馴染みやすくなってるんじゃないかなと僕自身は思ってます。
Yeah, so basically, the image back then was to try and make him smart and cool, and now he's, much more kind of an lovable character.
I'm really interested too I love the Genesis. I had that growing up. The Dreamcast kind of holds a special place in my heart because it was the first console I was able to buy with my own money. Similar to you, even like I had a job at Office Max, which still exists somewhere, and I bought the Dreamcast as soon as I could. Could you guys talk about maybe a little about the development or the launch of the Dreamcast? I know you guys may not have direct experience to that. And also, I remember that dark day at the end of 2001 when Sega announced no more consoles. What was that like for you being at Sega during that event?
I'm going to hand that one over to Chris because he was there.
Okay.
So the launch, obviously, pretty easy to remember, 9999, for me anyways. A lot of nines. It's obviously a very fun time, very chaotic, rushing to market. A lot of games you pin a date to them, and that's often difficult for developers because the game usually is done when it's done, not when a marketing person tells them it needs to be done. So certainly a lot of down-to-the-wire type activities, but fun. 2001, certainly, there's been better news that I've heard in my professional career, but I think Sega's done really well to regroup and to continue to offer compelling game experiences to gamers everywhere.
So like one of the biggest challenges that they faced at the time of the Dreamcast launch was actually implementing kind of online gameplay. Being able to play, over the net was kind of a big thing back then.
セガの中では本当に当時のソニーさんですとか任天堂さんに、活動っていうのすごく盛り上がってたっていう僕の印象があります。
So there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of activity going on because at the time there was also Nintendo was coming out with new things. There was a new thing called PlayStation at that point. So there's a lot of exciting activity and challenges I think for Sega and everyone involved.
I'll tell you guys, I remember when the PS2 launched, and those games looked a lot worse than the Dreamcast games I was playing. So I know it's always felt kind of unfair to me. I'm sure maybe to a lot of people in this audience. Soul Calibur, man, the motion capturing, the smoothing of that, I could go on forever. Could we talk about like what Sega is doing today, specifically in mobile? I know you guys have some PC games as well that you're working on. But let's talk about mobile. What is Sega up to today?
So mobile, it's a really cool new space because you can play games for free, and it's a great space for introducing new brands. So what we're doing at Sega is, while we're making sure that we're taking care of our classic brands and bringing them to consumers in exciting new ways, we're also building new brands. And for us, we don't want to fast follow. Which is a phrase in our industry for imitating other companies. We want to do new things. We want to bring new experiences to the table and take risks and show you something really exciting on the mobile platforms. And that's what Sega is all about.
I agree.
Anything from Kikuchi-san on what Sega's doing now on mobile? And, yeah.
僕は、日本の、モバイルゲームっていうのは少し前まではブラウザで遊ぶゲームっていうのがたくさんあったんですけれども
So there's a lot of, up until now, there's been a whole lot of games in Japan online, but kind of more browser-based games.
その中でいち早くですね、ネイティブの、ブラウザでない本格的に遊び応えのあるゲームというのを目指していろいろ手が出ています。
So we're looking for kind of an opportunity to bring more realistic game experience kind of away from the browser towards the end.
It's definitely interesting to see all these Sega games on mobile now. I have so many solid games on this phone now. We were also talking about the launch of the Genesis. Is there anything going on? I think I had a tidbit of news from a mobile version of Kingdom Quest 2. You guys had some news now around that, around the 25th anniversary of the Genesis?
Yep.
Yeah.
So 25 years. It's amazing that it's been that long since Genesis came out. But we're doing a number of things this year to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Genesis. And one of the first things we're doing is in our free-to-play mobile game Kingdom Conquest II. We're introducing Gilead's Thunderhead to the game, as well as the werewolf from Altered Beast. So we're really having fun with that. And again, that's one of the great things about the IP that we have, the intellectual properties, the brands that Sega has, is that we can take, from the 25 years of history of building great properties and bring them into today's games.
Ethan, I think you really have an interesting perspective in Mobile too, because you were there in 2008 on stage with Steve Jobs when they launched the App Store, and that kind of changed the face of gaming for the next couple of years. Can you talk about that experience, and I don't know, how important it was that Sega was there at the beginning?
Yeah, we were in a really exciting window at the launch of the App Store. I was working on Super Monkey Ball. And the thing about Super Monkey Ball is it's just so easy to explain, and it sounds so fun when you just say it's about rolling a monkey around and trying to get him to a goal, you know? So Apple responded well to that, and we were able to be there at the launch of the App Store. And a professional memory that I'll always hold to my heart was Steve Jobs telling us in person, this is going to be the #1 app at the launch of the App Store when he was playing it, and it was. And seeing that actually happen was a remarkable thing.
Do you guys have any comment on the significance of Sega being there at the beginning? Does that tell us something about Sega as a company, or how they innovate?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think Sega has a history of innovation. We always try to bring new experiences to gamers. I think if you look at the Dreamcast, that was the first built-in internet-connected hardware using a 266K modem, which is pretty crazy. So I guess we try to maintain that culture of innovation. Even though we're not making hardware anymore, we still have a lot of the engineers and designers that were working back then. So you see that innovation in the types of games that we are designing, both for PC console and either for PC console or mobile. So.
Ethan, you guys had experience working with Apple before the App Store announcement. I remember, there was a Sonic game on the iPad, the click wheel iPad.
Yeah, so the click wheel iPad, if you guys remember, iPod, that's right. Yeah, there was no iPad at that time.
Yes.
The click wheel iPod, yeah, we actually did bring a version of Sonic the Hedgehog, which was pixel perfect. It was a little tough to control. Yeah.
I can imagine doing the spinning just by clicking the wheel so many times. So you guys are bringing some classic franchises down to mobile now too. You did Jet Set Radio, and this one's for Kikuchi-san too. What was that experience like? Actually deciding to bring Jet Set Radio to mobile, and what were the challenges involved? Because the controls in that game were always, I love that game. The controls were always kind of, I was fighting with them. So how did you translate that to mobile?
一つにはこの端末で動くようにするってところがまず
So the first challenge is actually getting the game to run on one of these devices here. So that's a pretty big challenge.
でもう一歩進んでかけるさらに進化させる場合にはそこに合わせた UI どうやったら同じような体験ができるのかっていうタッチパネルに合わせる。
So how do you? Another big challenge is how do you bring kind of the user interface and the kind of the simplified experience that you get with a console game to kind of a touch interface. It's a big challenge with moving from kind of a controller based into touch based.
And you guys, you also brought Crazy Taxi to mobile as well. Another game that I love. Any updates on how that franchise is going to live on in the future? Is it going to be mainly focused on mobile now?
I can take a stab at that. Just to say, we recognize that Crazy Taxi is one of our most popular brands. We love it within Sega as much as you guys love it, so we recognize the value of continuing to work on big brands like that. I wish I could be more specific.
I'm kind of interested too, because you guys have such a wealth of franchises and brands to pull from. How does Sega decide, who to bring back, who to bring to mobile, who to put on the Xbox Live Arcade? Because I've been replaying a lot of classic games there too.
I think it's a combination. We do actually do some pretty meticulous type research to figure out what kinds of characters still resonate with people. There's obviously a lot of characters in our history, so it's a combination of looking to see what people remember and think fondly of, and also what we think we could either reintroduce or reimagine. And of course, it's important to consider the platform, so we want to make sure that that game experience fits the device or the console or the PC that you're playing on.
Gotcha. One thing I've noticed too is that you guys have been on the PC side. You're focusing a lot on RTS and strategy games. That seems almost like dangerous territory, because I feel like a lot of PC publishers are backing away from that. Why embrace it now?
I wouldn't say we're embracing it now. I think Creative Assembly, our studio in the UK, has been doing the Total War series for a decade or more. So I think it's a space that we feel very comfortable in, and it's I guess a pretty tried and true genre, for lack of a better word. We recently acquired a studio, Relic Entertainment, out of Vancouver. They do the game Company of Heroes, which is also a very storied RTS. So I guess some publishers maybe are moving out of the space because they haven't really mastered it. And I think we are in a pretty good position where we have at least two dev studios that really know the format and are able to excel at it.
Gotcha. Okay. I know you guys also announced, I think towards the end of last year, that you were acquiring Atlus, maker of some really classic RPG franchises. Any updates on what that means? Will Atlus change at all? How will Atlus operate under Sega?
I can't really talk at length about it. It was obviously a decision that was made in Japan. Atlus, parent company, is a Japanese company. They certainly make some great games, and I don't think there would be any reason why Sega would want to disrupt that. But it just happened, and actually the deal hasn't officially closed. So there's still a lot of lawyers talking and stuff. So once all that boring stuff's over, I definitely look forward to see how Sega and Atlus will work together.
Cool.